Good day, madam. I'm Lo Chen with metric number 272921. Now I'm going to kickstart our presentation with some introduction. According to Section 3, Clause 1 of Partnership Act 1961, partnership refers to the relation which subsists between persons carrying on business in common with a view of profit. The word relation in this section signifies that partnership is a relationship instead of merely an organization, and persons indicates that the partnership must consist of more than one person. Companies Act 2016 does limit the number of partners to 20, and if an ordinary partnership exceeds the number of 20, it will not be considered as a valid partnership. In Section 2, a business is defined as trade, occupation, or profession. The phrase carrying on business in Section 3 indicates that the business must be existing but not business to be carried on in the future. On the other hand, the intention of a partnership must be on gaining net profit through the ongoing business. It is also vital to note that Section 11 of the Act provides that every partner in a partnership is jointly liable for all debts and obligations of the firm. Dissolution of a partnership without court intervention divides into four, where Section 35 Clause 1 provides on one of the conditions for the dissolution by death and bankruptcy subject to agreement. The case that being reviewed in this article is a civil procedural appeal case with the legal citation of Pembinaan Teen Child Syndrome Berhad versus Citra Muda Syndrome Berhad and another, which had been ruled in the Kuala Lumpur High Court on 16 of May 2002. This appeal case had been heard before the learned Judge Abdul Malik Ishak Judge, whereby Ajit Kumar has still acted as the legal representative on behalf of the plaintiff along with Yang Mulia Tengku Azlina binti Tengku Ismail, who played the role as the advocate and solicitor in the interest of the second defendant. It was a case concerning the automatic dissolution of partnership upon bankruptcy order against one of the business partners.
Good day, madam. I'm Hui Hong with matrix number 273410. Now I would like to continue our group presentations with the brief facts of the case. In this decided case, a joint venture partnership agreement was signed by the first and second defendant together with a concession named Concession Citra Contractors Nusantara (KCKN), and it was then run under the name of CMRE KCKN. Following this, through a letter dated 12 May 1997, these joint venture partners have officially awarded the plaintiff a construction contract entitled KL International Airport, Aprons and Taxiway, W2/S3 South. The project under the written agreements was completely performed by the plaintiff in the light of the contractor terms in December 1997, and therefore, besides seeking for a retention claim on the ground that the retention sum should be returned to the plaintiff on 1st of April 1998, the plaintiff have further submitted a final progress claim on 8th of April 1998. However, neither the first and second defendant nor KCKN has paid the sum or any parts thereof as requested by the plaintiff, even though the advocates and solicitor on behalf of the plaintiff have issued two letters of demand dated 18 June 1999 and 11 October 1999 respectively. As a result, the plaintiff have filed an application for summary judgments pursuant to Order 14, Rule of High Court 1980, but it is important to highlight that the applications for the summary judgments was only be made against the second defendants with the presumption that the plaintiff left the first defendant alone, since there was an order of winding up against the first defendants which has been issued by the Kuantan High Court on 20 June 2000. I satisfied with the decisions of the learned deputy registrars in dismissing the summary judgments applications with cause. The plaintiff has appealed to the judge in chamber looking for the judicial enforcement regarding the application for summary judgments against the second defendants in terms of the payment for final progress claim, retention claim, cost as well as other appropriate relief.
Good evening, madam and all my friends. I am Elvis with matrix number 272967, and today I would like to share about the issue and also judgment of the court in Pembinaan Teen Child case. So first of all, let us come to the issue of this case. The issue in this case is whether the winding down of the corporation will automatically dissolve the partnership. In this case, the plaintiff claimed the payment to the second defendants with the allegation that he is liable for the debt of the partnership. However, as the winding down of the company was admitted by court, so the second defendants claimed that there is no liability for him to take over the debt of the company. Now we come to the judgment of the court. The court looked at the argument of the case which were in the favor of the second defendants and thus held the dismissal of the appeal, held that the discrepancy contract in subcontract created a triable issue as this was a contractor expertise against the plaintiff. The plaintiff had failed to prove his claim clearly, followed by the second defendants having success to point an arguable issue against him, so that the judge held the satisfaction of evidence which the issue has raised by the second defendants and was able to investigate and also review. Next, followed by evidence of the signed contract, it was held that the contract was signed by the first defendants without the agreement of the second defendants. Furthermore, the evidence sent to the second defendants was not replied within the time. Hence, subject to the law, there is no implied authorities of the first defendants to hold on behalf of the second defendants, since as the express authority was not given to the second defendants to execute it. Furthermore, the letter of dismissal did not mention the claim of 110,000 ringgits, and the second defendants ever got the notice as well. As the plaintiff has refused to the letter of dismissal was served onto the second defendants, hence he loses the proof of the service. Therefore, there is no cause of action against the defendants. Next, subject to the said law, the partnership will automatically dissolve by the operation of law upon bankruptcy or die of the partners, unless there is an agreement of non-dissolve between the parties. To make the clear explanation, the court held that the winding down of the companies is equivalent to bankruptcy. The claims that did not sign the KCKN companies, which are party in joint venture agreement in present suit, further concrete the view on the relationship between the first and the second defendants was partnership. Hence, the absence of such an agreement result in dissolution of the partnership, so that the second defendants is not liable to the event that the first defendants made for the company. Alright, so that's all for me, and now I will pass to the next presenter, and also thank you.
A very good day I bid to Madam and my fellow friends. My name is Koyan Han, and my metric number is 274056. The part that I'm going to present today is the formation of partnership. A partnership agreement can be formed verbally, in written form, or involving both ways, not only restricted to those express way, but a partnership may also be formed by inferring from the parties' conduct. According to Section 4 of the Partnership Act 1961, it has stated that to determine whether a partnership relationship exists or not, several rules need to apply. The first rule is that the co-owners of land are not recognized as partners despite the parties sharing the land's rentals. However, there will be a partnership if the parties both run a business together on land from which they gain the profits. Then the parties will be regarded as partners, as referred in Section 4, subsection A. The second rule is that receiving a portion of that amount from the business growth does not necessarily rectify that person as a partner unless there is any stock section presented as a partner, as stated in Section 4, subsection B, sub
Section 4, subsection C is about a general rule where whoever shares the business profit can presume that the person is the firm's partner. However, this presumption is rebuttable if there is any reliable evidence that can be presented. In light of the Chui Siu Chong and Lucky Heights development Sdn Bhd, the court decided that there was no partnership relationship between both parties, despite the parties sharing the business profits, as the parties had separate business via a joint venture agreement. Based on the given case, the court's judgment had stated that a joint venture agreement existed among three parties, which are the first and second defendants, together with KCKN. Thus, the relationship of these three parties is in connection with partnership relations. The formation of this partnership is what awarded the contract in question to the plaintiff. The court has stressed that since KCKN had entered into the joint venture agreement, it is for sure that KCKN should be cited into the suit as it is a certain partner of this contract. In order to determine whether a partnership existed between KCKN and the first and second defendant, the surrounding circumstances and the intention of the parties to enter into the contract should be taken into consideration. Referring to the significant case Cox and Hickman, this case has highlighted that the fundamental intention of the parties involved is an important factor in determining the partnership's existence. The intention does not have to be expressed, although the parties involve partners factually. Therefore, KCKN is considered as a lawful partner in this case because it has entered into the joint venture agreement with the first and second defendant, showing that it has the intention to have a partnership relationship with the defendants.
Thank you, Johan, for passing the microphone to me. I'm Emily Gan Zi-ying, metric number 272767. Now, I would like to bring you to discuss about the part of partners are jointly liable in this case. According to the Section 11 of Partnership Act 1961, each partner in the firm is jointly accountable for all of the firm's debt and liability suffered while he was a partner. Besides, if a partner dies, his estate is severely in charge of such debts and responsibilities in the process of administration. In this case, it was a joint venture partnership which was formed by Citra Muda Sdn Bhd, which is first defendant, Ready Build M Sdn Bhd, which is second defendant, and Consortium Citra Contractor Nusantara, which is called KCKN, award a construction contract to the plaintiff. It seemed that the plaintiff had admitted the joint venture agreement between the first and second defendant with the KCKN was in the nature of the partnership that operate the CM, RB, KCKN operations. However, it is presumable that because of the first defendant have been ruled out by the Kuantan High Court, so the plaintiff only sought the summary judgment against the second defendant. The second defendant contended that the plaintiff failed to cite KCKN as a party to the suit when it was the first and the second defendant, together with the KCKN, who had awarded the contract to the plaintiff. KCKN was certainly a party to the joint venture agreement and must be cited as a party in the present suit, but this was not done at all. In the case of Osman Haji Muhammad Yusuf versus Chan Kang Sui, a firm called the Federal Trading consists of three partners who manage it and another three sleeping partners. The managing partners borrowed a loan from a moneylender for the business of the firm, and Chan Kang Sui was the guarantor of the loan in the following terms. The moneylender sued for his debt when the firm failed to pay him. Chan Kang Sui paid the debt and then sued all the six partners for the amount thus paid on their behalf. Five of them admit the liability, but one of the defendants contends the claim. The trial court held that there was a partnership debt, and therefore all of the six partners were liable on the quarantine. The defendant appealed. The Court of Appeal held that since the business was carried on in common for the benefit of all the partners, Thus, the defendants were equally liable for the debt. Thus, in our opinion, the plaintiff should have commenced the suit against the first defendant, second defendant, and the KCKN, which are the partners that operate the CMRB KCKN operations, because every firm partner is equally accountable for all debts and liabilities incurred when he is a partner. That's all from me. I will pass the floor to the next presenter.
A very good day I bid to Dr. Nohati and my fellow friends. My name is Kah Yao, metric number 272807. Today, I will present the discussion of a partner's bankruptcy and the effect. In our case review, the first defendant was declared bankruptcy and the court upheld the effect of partner's bankruptcy. In essence, the winding up of the first defendant shall affect the joint venture partners as well. In this connection, the second defendant and KCKN will also be affected. Since the first defendant had been wound up, the partnership account must be resolved amicably between the parties to that before the Order 14 application could be held. It also can be elaborated by Section 35 of the Partnership Act 1961. It provides that, subject to any agreement between the partners, every partnership is dissolved as regards all the partners by the death or bankruptcy of any partners. Besides, a partnership may, at the option of other partners, be dissolved if any partner suffers his share of the partnership property to be charged under this Act for his separate debt. It is clearly stated that the partners may agree that death or bankruptcy shall not affect a partnership, but in the absence of such an agreement, the partnership is dissolved upon any occurrence by operation of law. It can be referred to the case of Aku and Richardson. In this case, the court held that an agreement between the partners means an agreement between all of them entered into before the death of relevant death and bankruptcy. In short, the agreement between the partners not to dissolve the partnership either by death or bankruptcy of partners may be oral or inferred from conduct of the surviving partners and the heirs of the deceased partner. Furthermore, the dissolution of partnership is effective from the moment an act of bankruptcy is committed. In the case of Khoo Yok Wah and others, and Lee Kun Yam Holdings Berhad and others, the learned judge expressed that while partners have a duty to render account to the legal representative of deceased partners, the converse does not apply. In addition, Section 30 of the Partnership Act 1961 does not provide that the personal representative of a deceased partner is bound to render the account. It also can be supported by Section 36 of the Partnership. The provision enacted as follows. A partnership is in every case dissolved by the happening of any event which makes it unlawful for the law firm business to be carried on or for the members of the firm to carry it on in partnership. In consequences, the bankrupt partner had no apparent authority in the existing partnership. Pursuant to Section 7 of the Partnership Act 1961, it provides that the partner's conduct will not bind if he in fact had no authority to do so, and the person dealing with the firm. In the current case, the defendant was bankrupt, and he is no longer the partner and had no apparent authority in the partnership. In conclusion, the bankruptcy of a partner may lead to the dissolution of the partnership. If not, the partner will be removed and have no apparent authority in the partnership. So that's all from me. I will pass the floor to my group members. Thank you.
In conclusion, it is undeniable that Partnership Act 1961 plays an important role in partnership law. Since it is the way most small businesses are organized, a written partnership agreement can act as a safeguard that protects rights and benefits of the parties. Partnership Act 1961 helps to reduce the risk of misunderstandings and disputes between the owners, as we know that without a guideline or written law specifying the rules in business, the partners may vary their ways to solve the disputes instead of making decisions through agreement. On the other hand, the Partnership Act has also played the role to protect the business and the partner's investment. There are provisions that address the solutions in the event of an owner's death, disability, or personal bankruptcy, such as Section 34 and Section 35. These provisions can add predictability and stability when these scenarios happen, while the provisions which prevent the partners from sharing confidential information helps to maintain a competitive edge and protect the investments of all the partners. That's all from our group. Thank you for your time and have a good day.